Morning all. We'll just give it a couple of seconds before we start. Good morning all. My name is Henny Oosthuizen. I'm with a company called Money for Jam. Money for Jam is a gig technology company. And we essentially connect closed groups or open groups or crowds, people, to organizations or to their brands. As the organizational psychologist, my role is to advise the team of how to engage with technology to these groups of people. We are in very interesting and exciting times as far as managing people. COVID has forced us to stop and stand still and re-evaluate the way that we do things. Why today's topic, employee performance engagement? Basically because we talk about it a lot, but I don't know how effectively organizations implement it. I see on LinkedIn these things, employees are the most important assets, create opportunities, happy employees are performing employees. But when I engage with companies, I rarely find an effective employee engagement culture or philosophy. I strongly believe that there's a significant movement from employee engagement being an emotional to a very transactional process. Work equals performance and home equals connection or relationships. There's a significant need in South Africa, but I think worldwide, due to unemployment and the shrinkage of our economies, that employees need to be secure and need to feel the stability of their future. Today I want to take you through some of our thoughts, some of the things that we've seen and some of the things that you might consider. I am going to turn off my screen because it's easier for you to follow. And then I've realized with webinars, it's very difficult to ask questions for the audience. So I will mail all of you afterwards, or you can mail me at ho@m4jam.com and ask me your questions and I'll share with you my thoughts and ideas. Just waiting for the presentation to come up. There we go. What is your understanding of employee engagement? How do you overcome the challenges in managing employee engagement? I want you to test your understanding today, prior to our discussion, and then post the discussion of how you viewed it and possibly the ideas that I've shared with you today. The key issues to understand when you talk about employee engagement is how do you manage a local and a dispersed workforce? How do you connect with blue-collar and white-collar employees? How do you engage with permanent staff, temporary staff, contract staff, or independent agents that engages with your customers but they don't work for you directly? Office-based, home-based, newly appointed employees in this new world of ours, and an ever-changing business environment. Often organizations, and mostly organizations, talk about employee engagements. All the articles are written, and I believe there's a significant word that needs to come in there. Employee performance engagement. Engagement is just a relationship. It doesn't have a business context to it. And that's why I believe the word performance is critical. I believe that we understand that employee engagement is a sense of belonging, a sense of emotional well-being. That employees must be informed, consultant, so that they can be committed. There's a good understanding of that. The two areas that lacks in employee performance engagement is, number one, defined roles, responsibilities, the measurement thereof, recognition and reward. So HR departments all have these role clarities. They use that to grade the job, determine salary, salary, yes. But yet, when it comes to the detail of what the individual must do and the measurement thereof, performance management becomes a once-a-year activity that you rate somebody. I believe it's way more dynamic than that. And then inclusion and active participation by employees. By inclusion, I mean, how do you include somebody that's a field sales worker and not at head office? How do you include an independent agent that touches your customers, but they don't work for you? Blue-collar employees that work shifts. How do you engage with them? So you cannot have an inclusive process if you engage with head office white-collar staff, but never get to engage with your other employees or stakeholders. So the starting point. My number one starting point is a non-negotiable basic need of employees to engage and to perform. Is they've got to, individual must be able to answer the following questions. Do I know who I report to? Who's my boss? Who's the person that will dismiss me? Do I have a role clarity and a task list? Task list is, what do I have to do when I get to work today? And do I know if I'm performing to the required standards? So when I go home tonight, I know that I've performed according to standards. Do I know what my remuneration is? Do I know whether I will get a bonus at the end of the year? Do I know when whether there's increases on the table? Do I know when the increases takes place? When I get promoted, what will my new salary be? So it's not just whether the individual knows what his salary will be in his first pay slip, or it is whether the employee knows about the broader understanding of his income. And then lastly, and this is very important to understand, do I have enough information at hand to determine whether my employment at this organization is secure? So nobody in the organization can tell an employee your employment secure, but you can supply employees with enough information. Our cash flow position is strong. We're growing in our market share, or vice versa, so that employees understand from a security point of view, in today's life, you cannot not be transparent. You have to be transparent with employees. Employees are not stupid. They can see in a factory, if we're producing less than what we used to produce, the production numbers are down, the profit must be down. Be open and be transparent. So, non-negotiable is there's a basic need for employees to engage. Number 2, self-interest drives employee engagement participation. It is critical that prior to implementation, employees can understand what's in it for me. So, before you implement an employee engagement program, employees must understand, why is this done? Why should I get involved? How's it going to affect me? How's it going to affect my career, my progress? And it sounds like a very negative statement. But if there's no interest for me to partake, why will I be part of the engagement program? Some people are naturally engaged with their organizations. They were born like that. They were engaged at school, they were engaged at university, they engaged in their organizations. Some people are naturally totally disengaged from life. And I wonder if you could ever get them engaged with a company, but you could get them engaged with their performance. So if you don't have self-interest, and self-interest is not determined at Sandton, what we think is important to our salespeople in Nelspruit. It is to understand your people in Nelspruit and understand why they would want to be engaged. Okay, so we've got a 3-dimensional view of employee performance engagement. There are certain activities that you've got to do. You've got to have reach through the appropriate channels. And then you've got to utilize the right technology to integrate all of these activities that need to take place. Firstly, let's look at the key activities that makes up employee engagement. I'm going to first tell you what companies traditionally think it is. They think it's employee wellness. Most companies think that employee engagement is all about employee wellness. Some understand that communication is there. Very few companies understand that performance management is the core activity in employee engagement. So what do we ensure with performance engagement? That there's continuous clarity of role, continuous measurement, and continuous recognition and reward. Now, continuous performance management is not an annual, it's not a quarterly, it's not a monthly process. It's a daily activity. Employees need to understand every day that I do my job to the required standard. Some positions are way more complicated in nature, the more specialized or senior they are, and some are obviously more structured. The fact is, each employee firstly has got a need to know that. I just want to jump over to employee wellness. We want to give our employees access to psychologists and people to support them emotionally when they can't perform. Now they get stressed and burn out. But what if you made them perform prior to them needing a psychologist or emotional support? Get them to perform, then their basic need is fulfilled. The second one, the communication one, is employee connect sessions to ensure that all employees are consulted, committed, and informed. Now, communication is a two-way process where you can send information, broadcast information that is important. This is open, transparent information that flows to people. This could be the company information, your typical staff meeting, But how do you do it when you've got 10,000 people dispersed over South Africa? But it's your communication sessions. It's the one-on-one that each manager have got with each employee once a week. It's the group huddles. It's where teams get together, discuss where the team is going, what is each person's role within that team, where it's going right, where it's going wrong. It is the communication of the hard key measures, whether the organization are performing, whether it's profit, whether it's accident or incident rates, etc. So it's clear communication that is given consistently through the relevant channels so that all employees are communicated with. Then skills development. I think this is my biggest bugbear. Once a year, a skills audit is done. Questionnaire is sent out. Which courses would you like to do? People come back with, I want to do time management. I want to do Excel training. Instead of skills development being informed by performance management, what are the functional skills that people lack to complete their job? Development, further studies, mentorship programs, those are critically important, but not if you've don't have functional training programs in place. Now, functional training is not in a classroom necessarily. It could be one-on-one coaching. It could be online learning that is specific to the person's job. Or it could be in a classroom. But skills development forms a critical portion of employee engagement. I want to engage with you because it's in your self-interest to know this so that you can perform and earn more and have got more job security. Then brand connection. The marketing communication divisions are almost seen as external to employee engagement because employee engagement are mainly driven from the HR department. What would you like in your organization? As the CEO, you would like each employee to connect with your brand. They must be the brand ambassadors. They must believe in your product. They must believe in your brand. When they're at the Braaivleis and speaking to their friends, they must convince their friends they're working at the best company with the best product. Because if you cannot get your employees to believe in the product and the brand, how are you going to communicate that externally? The stronger that connection is with the brand, the stronger your relationship will be with your customers. Then employee wellness. There is a place for employee wellness programs in organizations. It should not lead the way. It should be the net that catches people that really do need help. These are professional services to employees that go through tough times. They need emotional support. They might go through trauma that's got nothing to do with work, but has got an impact on work. So you've got to have a professional services that support this. But you have to manage your employee wellness organization. Don't just leave it up to them to do what they think is right. They must engage with you and understand your employees, what is their self-interest, what are the typical things that happen in their environment. The employee wellness of an air traffic controller, the employee wellness of a person that works in a mine, and the employee wellness of somebody that works in a retail store surely are different. Surely are their needs from that wellness program differ. So the basis of the support would be the same, but the nuances must fit that specific industry. And then induction. This is going to be so interesting to see how a new chartered accountant joins Deloitte. He now typically used to work next to his mentor when he's doing his articles, and now suddenly he's sitting at home because nobody's working from home. How are you going to induct people into your organization? How will you make it a dynamic process that it's not every first of the month 10 people gets into a classroom, you tell them about the company values and what they can expect of the organization. It's not then dynamic enough. So how will your induction program be structured so that it is an inclusive process? Easy to do the head office people, just put them in a classroom. How do you do if you've got 20,000 field sales agent, how do you induct them? For instance, at Money for Jam, we've got 480,000. We call them jobbers. These are gig employees that promote our business. How do we induct a new person? We have to do it digitally. But at head office, we might do it in a physical form. So those are the activities. My advice here is less is more. Go and sit and evaluate in those 6 components or key components. Go and evaluate what you are doing at the moment. So I've got my employee wellness in place. I've got my induction in place. So on skills development, so on communication, and nothing on performance management. Then go and pick 2 or 3 activities in each of those that you're going to implement. HR often implement a lot of point solutions. And what I mean with point solutions is we think it's a good idea to have a Valentine's get-together. Why? Where does it fit into your strategy of employee performance engagement? Where does it fit in? If it's just a great idea, I can tell you now it's not a great idea. It must be well thought through. Where does it fit in? So that you don't do a lot of things with a low impact. Self-interest. I keep on saying to you self-interest. What is in the interest of that employee? Because if you address that is when you will get it right. So activities, less is more. Next, the one that I want to talk to you about is reach. Now, reach refers to the process and channels to engage with all your employees or stakeholders. So those are the blue collar, white collar, local, dispersed, permanent, temporary. Those are all the people. So when you've got communication as an activity, you might have different channels to disseminate the same information to different people. What connection channels exist? On a digital side, you've got WhatsApp, you've got Teams, you've got email, you've got and then you've got physical channels, face-to-face discussion, workplace meetings, staff functions. There are digital and physical channels. So once you've identified the activities that you're going to drive, then you're going to sit back and say, okay, to engage with my blue-collar employees that's in the factory, that's in a shifted environment, communicate to them. I can't use email because it's very ineffective to communicate to the manager, to the team leader, and then he's got to verbally convey the message. How are you going to engage? You can only engage with them after hours. If you engage with them after hours, how are you going to get it right? The access there must be mobile, through mobile. If WhatsApp can be used, I don't like WhatsApp. I think there's a place for WhatsApp because it's not interactive. You can't get feedback. So what is your tool? How are you going to engage there? So it is to sit back once you've got your activities in your groups. Now the complexity starts. And that's why you can't have too many activities, is now to connect different groups through the relevant channel. The message or the activity that you are driving will determine the channel. If you do not reach all your employees, rather don't have an employee performance engagement process, because that's where you create disparity in your organization. Technology. Identify activities, choose your channel, And through technology, you drive an integrated approach. When you're an organization of 10 or 15 people, it's very easy to engage employees from a process point of view. Emotionally, it still stays a complex process, but it's easy to reach. When you are dispersed, high volumes, or local but high volumes of staff, it becomes very complicated. This is where you've got to find yourself some technology to see how am I going to integrate all of this so that it can take place, that you can automate. The system that you implement will have the back-end administrative system that you will manage all activities, but the front end, how you engage with your employees, should be user-friendly. So if it's email, if all your employees have got access to email, you must determine, is that the technology that you're going to use? I don't think it's dynamic enough. You will have to find yourself a CRM system or online system that can manage this process. I think this is where Money for Jam's expertise have come in, because we really had to build a platform to engage with 480,000 people so that you can automate that process. A call to action. You have to determine what activities now go to whom. The activities need to be scheduled, and then participants must be informed of what will take place when. If there's no call to action and it's just this generic process that's almost you can participate when you want to, then activity in that process will be extremely low. Management control will determine the effectiveness of your employee engagement program. When you've got a specific division that never attends, don't complete their training, don't do their daily stand-ups, don't have their task list in place for employees to know what to do today, etc. If there's no management control in place, employee engagement is dead. If you go back to your organizations, if you think about your organization today, and you're just going to evaluate your own communication, does it get to people and do they really understand? Performance management. Do people really know? Do they have a task list in place? Communication. Go and evaluate each of the activities that you are supposed to do and see whether they're working. If they're working, it's because management's involved. I'm so tired of saying it's a top-down approach. The reality is, what gets measured gets done. If there's no management that interrogates whether it's taking place or won't take place, then don't do it. Don't waste your time. Don't then say your employees are the most important thing. Say your market's the most important thing. Your product's the most important thing. Focus on your product, treat people like machines, and you're going to be more successful than having this half-hearted approach. It's almost like the CEO that goes to an employee and say, "Hi, how's your family?" And he asks them the same question every time he sees them once a year. And the guy's family was killed in an accident. It is so false. It is so inconsistent. It is so done through the wrong channel. One of my colleagues, one of our executives, is very strong on measurement. And whenever I talk about solutions within in our space, he says, "Henny, how will I know that it's been implemented successfully?" You can only measure employee performance engagement when you look at the hard measures. Hard measures are, what is the production cost per unit? Has it reduced? What is the wastage? Have we reduced our wastage? These are some examples. Safety, number of accidents. What is your COID rate? As an HR manager, if I ask you today, what is your COID rate? Commissioner for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act. If your rating is high, it means you work in an unsafe environment. How are you going to get that down? If a self-interest of an employee is a safe environment, why do you focus on wellness program to help him with the emotional trauma of his arm being chopped off, rather manage his safety properly, because that's where the interest is. HR, staff turnover, number of disciplinary cases, financial. What is the budget? What is the actuals? What is your debtor days? What is the cash flow? Clients, what is the client satisfaction rate? What is your retention on clients? Sick leave, absenteeism, company client rating. What is this in your surveys? What are those? Compliance. What are the audit results? Audit results are almost always seen as a financial division's responsibility. Audit results is as a result of things being done properly. Things are being done properly because people are trained properly, they manage properly, and that's why you would have good audit results. Legal claims, RAND values. If your people are engaged, they're not going to be involved with all types of shenanigans. And then sales versus industry norm, your own sales, RAND value growth in existing clients. Don't go and take that typical old HR measures, which is staff turnover and typical number of disciplinary and what is the organizational climate. You're never going to you're never going to have any credibility from an HR point of view when you always just report on these soft issues. This is the important part. If employee performance engagement do not affect these indicators, don't do it. You're wasting your time. The last thing is I would like to share for me what is the golden rules. And a lot of them I've mentioned already, and I'm just going to recap on them. Participation of all employees. Number 2, user group structure, relevant activities. User group refers, a very good example of a user group is like WhatsApp groups. You've got moms and dads, and you've got your family, and you've got your business chat, and you've got the golfing group. So it's groups of people in an organization. It's not necessarily the job specific. It could be finance, it could be the audit division, it could be health and safety that sits across the whole organization. It might be a specific division, a specific region. So your user group structure is critically important to drive relevance of the information. A good example is we send out a newsletter with Sunny in Cape Town that has given birth to a beautiful young baby. The guy sitting in Polokwane doesn't know Sunny. He's not interested in Sunny. You would communicate that specifically to her colleagues so that there's excitement about the baby. When there's an issue with safety, and it's specifically in a specific region or division, you're going to give massive attention to that specific area. Timing and consistency. Your timing of your engagements. Timing, is it on a Friday? Is it after hours? Is it annually? Is it only quarterly? The timing of the activity is critical, and the consistency thereof. If you've got a one-on-one scheduled with each of your employees once a week, and you consistently cancel or move it out, you are devaluing the process. If you have got a monthly communication session with your staff and the CEO consistently moves it out or cancels it, you are devaluating the employee performance engagement process. You see how important is less is more in this case. Then incentivization to activate participation. And please, anybody that's so into gamification, adults don't play games. Yes, you can make it interesting. Yes, you can make it fun. You can make it interactive. But gamification don't work. Self-interest work. But how do you incentivize participation? The incentive for an employee to be active in his own training and development is that he will be promoted and earn more. there's got to be an incentive for the active participation. I can talk about that topic, and maybe I will in one of my webinars for a very long time. Why people perform when they're incentivized. The number of activities, I've spoken about that. Automation, critically, to drive all these activities consistently, you need to automate the process so that you can manage, control, and report on the effectiveness thereof. And then management, participation, and discipline. Thank you, everybody, for participating or joining me in this webinar. It will be sent to you, a recorded version of this. I will be in touch with you via email, or you can email me. You've got my email address, ho@m4jam.com. And have a wonderful day, and best of luck with implementing your own employee performance engagement program in this new world that we operate in. Thank you. Bye.